From humble beginnings to household names and a few court cases along the way, Rockstar are by far one of the biggest, most recognizable and proficient developers in gaming history. Responsible for multiple titles and franchises various generations will call their favorite, you really have to ask yourself, is there any other developer with such a solid track record? As you'll garner from combing through the following 26 titles, Rockstar, without being too overt about it, really did have some immaculate forethought when it came to developing subsequent releases. Various game mechanics or frameworks were tested in new IPs before being rolled back into their bigger games, forever ensuring that their marquee releases remain tentpole landmark events. Literally no other developer, save for maybe Nintendo, can lay claim to such meteoric success, nor the fact they've managed to maintain a notable high bar of quality for almost 2 decades at this point. Dan and Sam Houser may mostly keep out of the spotlight, but that allows them to focus on everything their studios put out without fear of bowing to publisher demands or the whims of the public. It gives Rockstar a real feeling of passion and intent, something that makes all their games some of the industry's very best. I'm Scott from WhatCulture.com, and as you can already see scrolling up the screen, this is ranking every Rockstar video game from worst to best. Number 10, Grand Theft Auto 5. You could tell Rockstar pulled out all the stops for GTA 5. Having rode high on the top of the world with one of the most lucrative franchises in gaming, they'd reinvest all that cash into making one of the most expansive and technically impressive games of all time. Every last inch of GTA 5 feels labored over to a ridiculous degree. From the undersides of quad bikes to the thousands of NPC design choices, the way Rockstar's Rage engine reacts to pretty much anything you can think of with a hilarious repercussion, all of it is straight up genius. The beauty of watching day turn to night turn to day again is something else. The culmination of everything that was first set in motion back in 1997. A living, breathing, dynamic world just waiting for you to get lost in it. Up against other GTAs, it's very hard to say that 5 story, characters, or humor hold up, but as a pure milestone in game design, it's a lifetime achievement. Number 9, Max Payne 3. Max Payne 3 is one of those games that was simply shown to the public in the worst possible way. Electing to show us a new Max that was bald, wearing a Hawaiian shirt, and standing in the Brazilian favelas, you couldn't get any further away from the hard-boiled New York detective that we knew and loved. Of course, in the end, this sequence was played for laughs, symbolic of how much Max had stopped caring. Shaving off his hair and wearing outlandish clothing as a hilariously dark comment on just how completely f***ed his life had become. And what a life it was. Max's third outing does take on a completely different tone with Dan Houser behind the pen, turning in a man-on-fire style blend of intrusive editing techniques and self-deprecating one-liners. Actual gameplay was stellar as Rockstar put all their craft into the best third-person combat money could buy. Ragdoll physics, super slow motion, every individual bullet perforating the environment, and Max himself needing to be piloted through the levels, carrying with him a sense of heft and regret. I might go as far as to say that Max Payne 3 is a noir masterpiece, something every action fan should play, as if you were put off by the initial marketing, do not let it continue to pass you by. Number 8, Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. When you were Rockstar circa 2004, just what boundaries were there left to break? With GTA 3 and Vice City, we had 2 landmark releases that redefined the very idea of a world on the other side of the screen. Though once we saw San Andreas, all assumptions were obliterated all over again. Playing basketball in the cul-de-sac of Grove Street, base jumping off Mount Chiliad, donning a suit to gamble in Las Venturas, stealing a plane from the local airport, San Andreas encapsulates that older, more punk rock mentality that Rockstar used to exude before they'd fully given in to the big time. As a location, it represents that 90s rap aura so many artists to this day harken back to, with one of the best soundtracks in gaming history backing every bullet. The only thing that stops it rising higher comes from how much Rockstar pushed GTA 3's tech to the point of splitting at the seams. San Andreas had some of the worst missions in the franchise simply because they were asking the player to perform feats that the control scheme and physics models were never built for. At the same time, it did give us the cultural meme of,
all we had to do was follow the damn train, CJ.
Number 7, The Warriors. Nobody apart from a certain sect of film buffs had even heard of The Warriors before 2005, but afterwards it would see a huge resurgence in popularity, reintroduced to a new generation some 26 years after the movie's release. Clearly a passion project on behalf of Rockstar themselves, The Warriors had the studio attempting to revitalize the aging brawler, giving you a number of bone-snapping melee attacks, gang commands, and minigames to pull off for, say, stealing a car radio. This was retro GTA with a side of being otherworldly. I say otherworldly because you were up against gangs like the face-painted, insane Baseball Furies or the incredibly militant Gramercy Riffs. The Warriors game became a cult classic because it was like Mad Max set inside the underbelly of the big city with an ice-cool soundtrack to boot. Rockstar's adaptation, in a genius move, fleshed out the events of what happened before, during, and after the film, providing the perfect tribute to the source material before letting the team have so much fun with all the characters many fans already had an affinity for. Hopefully, going forward, Rockstar will take a look back and implement some of the Warriors' perfect combat controls when designing GTA 6. Number 6. Manhunt. The beauty of Manhunt's unrelentingly bleak presentation comes from Rockstar reframing the GTA underdog story into one that happens more preternaturally. In this case, you're literally on the back foot, fighting for your life as one Lionel Starkweather has recruited various gangs and cordoned off chunks of the city so that he can make a last man standing snuff film. Simply down to such a horrific scenario, you'll go from scrabbling to secure kills with plastic bags, distracting gang members from their respective packs, to getting your hands on rifles, hammers, and eventually a chainsaw. By the time you've adapted to blending into the shadows and turning the tables on your oppressors, walking up to Starkweather, chainsaw in hand for the ultimate retribution is one of Rockstar's most emotionally charged moments. Number 5. Red Dead Redemption 2. There is a seismic quality to Red Dead 2 that genuinely makes it hard to quantify. The sheer amount of detail, options available to you, and the scope of recreating an entire chunk of the Old West and making it look interactive, all of this was a project that took almost a decade for Rockstar to pull off. The result is a sequel that for some will be the greatest thing that they've ever played or interacted with. And outside of subjectivity, Red Dead Redemption 2 is a magnificent achievement in every respect. Arthur Morgan 2 is easily Rockstar's best protagonist, and the solution to years of trying to design someone that could be anarchic through gameplay, but thoughtful in cutscenes. Featuring a stellar lead performance from Roger Clark, a phenomenal cast, and a truly resonant breakdown of the death of the Old West as America truly came into its own, Red Dead 2 is something special and has an atmosphere all its own. Number 4. Grand Theft Auto 3. It is very hard splitting the hairs necessary to parse out which of GTA, Vice City, San Andreas, or 3 is truly the best. But if we're talking about them on the whole, factoring in optional open world features just as much as the design mission path, GTA 3 really has a ton to offer. Being a far more straightforward, grounded crime story, there's none of the experimental, off-putting stuff like piloting helicopters around building sites or trying to gun down gangsters in toy planes like in the sequels. GTA 3 gets to up its visuals thanks to the world being fairly small in retrospect, but that also means that this 2001 version of Liberty City has a really inviting and memorable identity. A lot of the pedestrian banter is just hilarious, your weapon set is perfectly varied, and the hierarchy of cars that you quote-unquote unlock by finding them only mirrors the swath of destruction you'll cut from Portland to Shoreside Vale. GTA 3 is just as much a masterpiece now as it was back then, responsible for the open world genre's rise to prominence and every last freeform exploration quirk that we've seen the industry create since. The only quibbles come from an unresponsive targeting system, but when playing now, that still won't stop you getting embroiled in one of the best crime capers Rockstar have ever created. Number 3. Grand Theft Auto Vice City. There's style and then there's Vice City. Suffering a smidge from occasionally poor mission design, the majority of Vice City was like a playable montage of everything people adore about the 1980s. The clothes, the sun-scorched Miami/Vice City strip, the ludicrously over-the-top cars, the soundtrack, what an exemplary collection of songs in itself, responsible for getting entire generations into all sorts of forgotten bands and styles of music. Vice City wasn't just a video game or a set of characters, levels, or moments. It was a cultural movement. On the gameplay side, Rockstar would add such quality of life improvements like diving from moving cars, popping tires, and swimming, but together as a package, there's not been any time period in any game since that came quite so close to replicating an era like this. Number 2. Bully. Proof positive that Rockstar do their finest work away from the big budget necessities of another GTA. Bully saw them apply GTA's engine and design philosophy to high school, replacing the gang violence, gunfire, and vehicular carnage for jocks versus nerds, slingshots, and skateboards. Though the game garnered monumentally incendiary impressions as something promoting violence between children, Bully, or Canis Canem Edit here in the UK, was actually about keeping the peace. Yes, you could indulge your anarchic side and thwack a teacher with a stink bomb, but this was more Little Rascals than Brick. Spud-faced Jimmy Hopkins was just as much being bullied by those around him as he was trying to establish a sense of place in the madness of hormone-fueled elementary. Ultimately, this playfully used GTA's reputation and mechanics to springboard into another echelon of pure young adult escapism. The soundtrack was straight up Harry Potter, whilst the game would recognize your system clock to ensure that come Christmas, you booted up with a snowball in hand, ready to fight back against those pesky prefects. Therein lies the genius of Bully, and a game with an identity so lovable, Rockstar need to do a sequel, one that we kind of know is coming, but also let it age with grace. Number 1. Red Dead Redemption. There is a quality to the way that Red Dead controls and feels in motion that elevates it above everything else Rockstar have ever done, even this game's sequel. Everything from the way John Marsden tips his hat at a barman to the sun breaking over the horizon of another dusty day in the outback has a cinematic, perfectly handcrafted quality. The very life that you lead in Red Dead feels far more nuanced and impactful too. Take a moment away from hog-tying bandits to read the paper and you might find an advert for a shop wanting animal pelts. Journey off across the wilderness to secure said pelts from whatever comes your way, stopping to maybe help someone being robbed or wrangling a wayward horse for its owner along the way, and you can actually follow the address from the advert to find the place and complete the transaction. That is a level of immersion and a deft mastery of the open world genre that Rockstar would expand upon in Red Dead Redemption 2, but it's just so much more focused here. On top of this, you've got things like the crossover into Mexico, complete with Jose Gonzalez's haunting so far away in the background, one of the finest scripts ever written delving into philosophical and socio-political themes on the power of wealth, religion, and purpose, and a finale that lets you seek revenge completely of your own accord. With a bar of quality this high, Red Dead Redemption 2 could only repeat and expand. Both games are excellent, but perfection was reached right here. And that is my breakdown of Rockstar's best games, at least so far. Let me know your own top 10 down in the comments below. Maybe you'd switch them around, maybe you'd bring something in from the ones that I didn't include in the top 10. But for now, I've been Scott from WhatCulture.com. Please check out the WhatCulture Gaming Podcast, and I'll catch you soon.